It started innocently enough. My family and I were decorating our home on Christmas Eve. We were laughing, sharing old stories, and enjoying the festive spirit. Outside, the world was blanketed in snow, painting a picture-perfect winter scene. As the evening wore on, we gathered in the living room, the fireplace casting a warm glow. We exchanged gifts, reveling in the joy of giving and receiving. It was during this cozy scene that I noticed something odd outside the window. A figure, standing in the snow, watching our house. It was too far to see clearly, but it seemed to be a person, dressed in what looked like an old-fashioned Santa suit. Thinking it was just James, the neighbor, dressed up to spread some Christmas cheer, I pointed it out to my family. But by the time they looked, the figure had vanished. A little spooked, but mostly curious, we continued with our evening, dismissing it as a trick of the light or my imagination. Later, as we settled in for the night, I heard a faint sound, like bells jingling. It was subtle, easy to dismiss as the wind or a distant car. But then it grew louder, closer. A sense of unease gripped me. I went to the window and peered out into the snowy night. There, in the dim light of the street lamp, was the figure again, closer this time, still watching our house. I called my parents, and together we looked out, but once again the figure had disappeared. Uneasy, we double-checked all the locks and decided to head to bed. I lay in bed, struggling to sleep, the image of the figure haunting my thoughts. That's when I heard it, a soft thud, like someone landing on the roof. My heart raced. It was impossible, I told myself. It must be the snow falling from the trees. But then came a sound from downstairs, a sound I'll never forget. A slow, deliberate... It was deep and guttural, nothing like the jolly laugh you'd associate with Santa Claus. I froze, terror gripping me. Mustering all my courage, I crept out of bed and tiptoed to the stairs. The living room was dark, the only light coming from the embers in the fireplace. And there, in the dim light, was a figure rummaging through our Christmas gifts. This was no jolly Santa. It was a man, tall and thin, wearing a ragged, dirty Santa suit. His back was to me, but I could see his hands were filthy, and he smelled of earth and mold. I wanted to scream, to run, but fear rooted me to the spot. Then, as if sensing my presence, he turned. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow and dark, a twisted smile on his lips.
Naughty or nice?
He rasped, taking a step towards me. That broke the spell. I screamed, and my parents came running. The man, startled, dashed out of the house, disappearing into the snowy night. The police said it was a homeless man, known to wander the neighborhood. They assured us he was harmless, just looking for food or something valuable. But I knew there was something more, something unexplainable and sinister about that man. That Christmas taught me that not all is merry and bright, and some gifts, like the truth behind that night, are better left unopened. Christmas was always a time for our family's annual skiing trip, a tradition we cherished. This particular year, we decided to visit a remote resort, praised for its pristine slopes and breathtaking views. The journey there was long and tiring, but the excitement of a white Christmas filled with skiing made it all worthwhile. Upon arrival, the resort was more secluded than I had imagined, nestled deep in the mountains, surrounded by a dense forest that seemed to stretch endlessly. The quaint wooden cabins dusted with snow looked like something straight out of a fairy tale. Our first day was perfect. The snow was fresh, the sky was clear, and the slopes were exhilarating. That evening, as we gathered in the cabin, the resort manager mentioned an old legend about the mountain. He spoke of a mysterious skier who was said to haunt the slopes, a ghostly figure from a tragic accident long ago. We laughed it off, the story adding an exciting edge to our adventure. The next day, I decided to explore a more secluded part of the mountain. The area was less crowded, offering a peaceful solitude that I craved. As I skied down the serene, snow-covered slopes, the rest of the world seemed to disappear. It was just me, the snow, and the sound of my skis cutting through the powder. That's when I saw it, a lone figure skiing further down the slope. Something about the skier caught my attention. He moved with an eerie grace, almost gliding over the snow. Curiosity piqued, I decided to follow at the distance. As I descended, a thick fog began to roll in, enveloping the mountain in a ghostly haze. The figure ahead seemed to become more elusive, blending into the fog. Pushing forward, I tried to keep him in sight, but he was always just out of reach. Suddenly, the ground beneath me gave way. I had unknowingly ventured too close to an unmarked cliff edge. I tumbled down the slope, the world spinning around me. A sharp pain shot through my leg as I came to a stop, the snow around me stained red with blood. Panicked and in pain, I tried to call for help, but my voice was lost in the vastness of the mountain. The fog was thick, obscuring my vision. I felt a deep sense of dread, realizing that I was alone, injured, and lost. That's when I heard it, the sound of skis approaching. Through the fog, the mysterious skier emerged, stopping just a few feet away. I expected a rescue, but instead the figure just stood there, silent, watching me. "Help me, please," I pleaded. The skier tilted their head as if considering my plea, then turned and skied away, disappearing into the fog. I was left in disbelief and despair. Why wouldn't he help? Hours passed, the cold seeping into my bones. Just when I thought I was doomed, I heard voices. Rescuers had found me, alerted by my family who had grown worried at my absence. They carried me back to safety, my leg broken but my life spared. Back at the resort, I recounted my encounter with the mysterious skier. The staff exchanged uneasy glances. They revealed that there had indeed been an accident years ago. A skier had vanished in a storm, never to be found. But the twist came the next day. While clearing my belongings, I found an old ski pass in my jacket pocket, one that wasn't mine. The name on it matched that of the skier who had vanished years ago. How it got there, I couldn't explain. Was it a warning, a message, or something else? The mystery of the ghostly skier remained unsolved, a haunting memory of a Christmas skiing trip that turned into a chilling encounter. Christmas was always my favorite time of the year. The snow, the lights, the music. But one Christmas Eve changed everything. It started off as a typical holiday. My family was bustling around preparing for our annual Christmas Eve dinner. The house was filled with the aromas of roasted turkey and cinnamon. I was in charge of decorating the tree, a task I took great pride in. As the evening drew closer, snow began to fall, blanketing our small town in a serene layer of white. After dinner, as per our tradition, we gathered around the fireplace, sipping hot cocoa and sharing stories. That's when the power went out. It wasn't unusual for winter storms to knock out the electricity, but this time, the darkness felt heavier, more oppressive. Armed with candles and flashlights, we decided to make the best of it. My younger sister Julia suggested we tell ghost stories. I rolled my eyes but agreed. As we started, the wind outside howled as if reacting to our tales. Then came a knock at the door. Startled, we all fell silent. Who could it be on such a night? My father, always the brave one, decided to check. He opened the door to reveal nothing but the snowy night. Puzzled, he closed the door, attributing it to the wind. As the night progressed, the atmosphere in the house grew tense. The storm intensified and the howling wind sounded almost like whispers. We tried to continue our stories, but the mood had shifted. My sister clung to my mother, her eyes wide with fear. Then came another knock, louder this time. We all jumped. My father, visibly annoyed, went to the door again. This time he opened it to find a figure standing in the snow. It was a man, or so it seemed, draped in a tattered old coat, his face obscured by a hood. "Can I help you?" my father asked. The figure didn't respond. He just stood there silent, the snow swirling around him. My father repeated his question, but still the figure remained motionless. Feeling uneasy, my father shut the door and locked it. We tried to return to our stories, but the mood was broken. Everyone was on edge, glancing towards the windows, expecting to see the mysterious figure. My sister was now in tears, frightened by the stranger in the storm. Then a loud crash came from the kitchen. We all screamed, my father rushing to investigate. In the kitchen, we found our back door wide open, snow pouring in. But that wasn't what made our blood run cold. It was the set of wet footprints leading from the door to under the dining table, and then stopping abruptly. There was no one there. We searched the house but found no one. The footprints were unexplainable. We decided to stay in the living room, huddled together, waiting for the storm to pass. Morning came, and with it the power returned. The storm had passed, leaving a serene calm. But the mystery of the night lingered. We couldn't explain the footprints or the figure at the door. Later that day, our neighbor came over. He apologized for his son, who had gotten drunk and was playing pranks on shouting to people last night. He mentioned his son lost his coat somewhere. Relieved, we laughed it off, attributing the footprints to him as well. But as they left, I noticed something that sent chills down my spine. The footprints were still there, right on the floor, untouched, despite us walking all around them. That Christmas left us with an unspoken question. Who or what had visited us that night? And what did it want? It remains a mystery, a chilling reminder that some things are beyond explanation.